Hello, everybody, and welcome back to No Fixed Address. I'm Teo, your host. If this is your first time listening, then, welcome. Whether you're walking to class, driving to work, or you're just curled up in bed, I hope this space feels like a little pause and a little moment to breathe in your day. Thank you for taking the time to just listen to me today. And for today's episode, I wanted to talk about something maybe more deep than the episodes that we've had so far, just because I feel like it got to that point in the semester where everybody is just really tired, kind of burnt out, and you're just kind of pushing yourself to the limit to just get everything done, every assignment, every exam, every study session. And kind of relating to that, I wanted to talk today about the invisible work that goes on behind the scenes for every, assignment or exam that you've aced. But I also kind of want to talk about authenticity, and you guys are going to see how in my head they go together. But without further ado, welcome to episode 4 of No Fixed Address. What I'm thinking about when I say like the invisible work that happens behind the scenes that people aren't really aware of is, if you ever had someone come up to you, just make a comment of like, wow, that looked so easy for you. And all you could think about was, wow, if only you knew, like if you knew the hours that I spent preparing or the number of times that I started over, the nights that I, felt overwhelmed, but I decided to keep pushing anyway. That's what I mean by like the invisible work. And it's also the reason why the comment of, wow, that looked so easy for you kind of sticks with me because it always reminds me how invisible effort can be. And it's not because you're necessarily hiding it, but because people usually only see the result. And kind of connected to that, there's another phrase that I've heard, I think, multiple times already, which is that hard work looks easy when it's done well. And like, don't get me wrong, I get the perspective it's coming from, but I also kind of hate it sometimes because we all know what visible success looks like, right? Like, it's a good grade, it's a trophy, it's a new job title, and maybe it's a post that gets a million likes. But how often do we talk about what it took to get to that point, the part that no one really saw? Because the truth is, most of the hard work never looks easy when you're doing it. Because the hard work looks like waking up before the sun, when no one's there to witness you struggling to get out of bed. It looks like studying through exhaustion, if you're an athlete, practicing until your body aches and just starting all over again every single day when no one, is there to clap for you. And also, hard work looks like doubt, a lot of it. And also silence and just, the stubborn hope that you have that you're gonna be able to make it out alive to the other side. And this is the part that feels really tiring, really like vulnerable. And it's, to be honest, really lonely because, no one likes going through this. And most of the time, you're going to go through it alone. Like when I used to play tennis, I've had people watch me before and, say that, like, wow, that looked so easy. And it kind of struck me that, like, they weren't there to experience the many mornings that I've dragged myself out of bed to practice or the times that I, pushed through even though I was injured. And they don't know about the nights or just the times that I've spent staring at the ceiling, just kind of playing every missed shot or opportunity that I've had in a match, just in my mind. And outside of being an athlete, it's when someone says, oh, your project looks great, you must be so organized. And I know for a fact I'm not an organized person, so that comment kind of throws me off sometimes. And it just kind of makes me want to give them the password to like my Google Drive or just my Word document for them to see, like, just go back and see the amount of times that I've rephrased the same like 5 sentence paragraph or the nights that I just spent talking to myself out loud because I was trying to figure out what I really wanted to say. Or, and this is always the hardest one, the moments where I doubted that I even had anything worth saying at all. And it's hard pushing through those moments, when you're alone and it's hard and you just want to just curl up in bed and not do anything. So if you're listening right now, I want you to think about something that you've accomplished this year, anything at all. And I want you to pause and just think about what you did to make that happen that no one maybe knows about. And I want you to kind of sit with it for a moment and realize that's your invisible work. And I want you to be proud of it. You should be proud of it, even if no one was there to witness what happened behind the scenes. So a key point is that invisible work is real work. And the hardest part is that often it's not going to look productive. And sometimes it even looks like just giving yourself a day to rest or, just rot in bed. And sometimes it looks like starting over. And all of that matters. All of that work that you put in, that matters. And part of that invisible work, it's also the other half of today's topic, being real and just authenticity. Because you think being yourself would be easy. Who else can you really be? But if we're honest, being real and authentic, it takes work too. And most of that, like the first part of this podcast, it happens, in the quiet. And most importantly, just is work that you do internally. And a lot of the discourse about, being real and authenticity that happens makes it sound like it's just a switch that you can flip and okay, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and I'm just going to say, I'm going to be myself today. And that's, the only work that goes into it, and then boom, you're your perfect authentic self. But if you've ever actually tried to be fully honest and fully yourself in a room full of people, it's not that simple. And I think the biggest part of why authenticity is so hard to find is because we all want to be liked. At the end of the day, we all want to fit in, especially in new spaces. That could be a new school, a new city, or even a new friendship that you've made. And I also think a lot of people were kind of raised, keep it together, never show too much, never be too vulnerable. You don't want to burden others with your feelings, just smile and say you're fine. But here's the thing, being real, as I've said before, it takes work. And I think it takes even more work than pretending does. Because to me, being authentic and being your real self means knowing yourself, your values, your limits, your needs. And that only comes from doing the inner work, as reflecting, for example, asking yourself the hard questions and sitting with the answer. For example, one of the bravest things, and this is gonna sound really cliche, don't give me any shit about it, please, is admitting out loud that actually I'm struggling right now and I need help. Of course, not right in this moment, but in the past. And, I didn't admit that in a journal or in my thoughts. I said that to people around me. I've said that to my friends, to my family. And you know what? Sometimes people aren't going to react the way you want them to. They, might try to kind of minimize it and just be like, oh, I'm sorry. That really sucks that you're going through that. And I want to say that their answer never makes your honesty any less valid. But I think you'd be surprised to hear that most people around you that care about you, when they hear that you're going through a hard time, they're always going to be there for you. They're going to offer you a shoulder to cry on or a ear that listens to you. And that's going to make you realize that wow, being vulnerable and being authentic really is worth it. And I think another way that authenticity shows up is when you go against what people expect of you. For example, maybe choosing a new career path that your family doesn't get, or turning down an opportunity that people think and expect that you should want, or moving away from home when everybody expected you to just stay in the university in your hometown. That's when being real feels like rebellion. And that's when, your real self comes out of its shell. And that's why it matters to know yourself, because authenticity and being real isn't just, being yourself, it's knowing yourself and trusting yourself that you're gonna make the best decisions for yourself, even when it's not the easy option or the option that others would have expected you to take. So, if you're still wondering, what do invisible work and authenticity have in common? For me, everything. You can't just wake up and, decide to be authentic and it's just going to happen. You have to do the internal work first. And the invisible work of like healing, reflecting, and choosing differently for yourself. That's work that no one sees, but that changes everything about you. Also, because sometimes authenticity doesn't look like confidence and just being so sure of yourself. It looks like saying, I don't know, I'm hurting, I need help, or even just saying, this isn't who I am anymore, I need to move on. There's nothing effortless about that. So for me, invisible work and being real meet in the moments when you finally let yourself be seen after you've done all the silent work of figuring out who you are. They meet in the moments when you decide to be vulnerable, or they meet when you stop trying to prove something to the world and start trying to understand something in yourself. Because the invisible work builds the foundation, and the authenticity, it's what grows on top of it. And people might notice the authenticity in you, your boldness, your clarity, the vision that you have for yourself for the future, but they'll never know what it took to get there unless maybe you want to share. But even then, some people might never fully get it. And that's okay, because not everyone is meant to witness your becoming, and also not everyone deserves to. So, there's been moments in your growth journey, or there's gonna be some coming up, where you just hit a wall and there's no one around you to like cheer for you or help you get through it. And there's no likes on your posts on Instagram. There's no, proud of you messages that you're gonna get. It's just you and the voice in your head that keeps asking, why am I doing this if no one's here to see it? So, as I've said, maybe you've experienced this, or maybe it's gonna happen to you, or maybe you're even going through it right now. If that's the case, I want you to hear this and just sit with it. The lack of witnesses doesn't make your effort any smaller, it makes it more sacred. Because the world is always going to praise the version of you that's already done, a finished product. But you are the one who has to walk through the unfinished parts. You're the one who has to keep showing up for yourself, even when it feels quiet and uncertain and exhausting, because that's where the real work is. So, I want you, for maybe the millionth time this episode, just pause right where you are and ask yourself two questions. What's one form of invisible work that I've been doing that I've never given myself credit for? And what's one small way I could be a little more real? Not louder or better, it's not about that, just more yourself. Got it? If something came to mind, I want you to write it down or just say it out loud. And maybe if you also might need a few extra moments for something to come up, take those minutes or moments or seconds, however long, because I want you to let it count. I want you to be proud of the work that you've put into yourself or a project, an exam, anything like that. I want you to really, really be proud of yourself and celebrate yourself. And if you feel like sharing with someone, do it. If you feel like there's no one in your life that you'd like to share this with, but you'd still just want to put it out there in the universe, you can also just message me, because it's easy to overlook all the work that we put into ourselves and projects that we do. And I don't want you to let the quiet parts go unnoticed, because they're part of yourself and your story too. So thank you guys so much for joining me for another episode. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me just talk for 15 minutes. But I just want you to remember this: the quiet effort behind who we are and the courage that it takes to show up, even when it feels easier not to. That's the moments where you're building yourself and you're becoming a stronger version of yourself. Whether you're building confidence, healing from something, learning a new skill, maybe trying to live life more authentically, I want you to know that you don't need to be fully seen to be valuable. The world may not notice your growth right away, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. You are becoming, and that alone is worth celebrating. And also, you don't need to have it all figured out. You know, just start where you are with whatever you've got and see where that takes you. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this more reflective episode today. I really enjoyed talking about it. And if you were wondering how this came up, for me, I was actually over the weekend, I saw so many marathon like videos on like TikTok and Instagram about people running the marathon. And, I just thought like, I found myself thinking like, wow, that looks so easy to this person, on my phone. And I was like, wait, you know, how long have they been training for this, which this kind of is what made the episode become what it has. And it's kind of random, I know, but I really thought it was something that everybody kind of goes through and struggles with. So, again, thank you so much for listening. This was No Fixed Address. I'm Teo. You can find me on Instagram at nofixedaddress.podcast. If you'd like to connect, send me any stories that you might have. I would love to hear from you. And I hope you have an amazing day, night, weekend, week, wherever you are. I just hope you get to celebrate yourself a bit more and you get to really appreciate how far you've become. So I'll see you guys next week. Same place, same time. Bye.